I grew up watching Oisín's father on the television, so like he's for me, he's just a huge celebrity, you know. So it's a great thing about travel that you get to sort of meet people like never. Oisín lives in much higher altitudes than I do in Ireland, so one of the great things about living here is I get to hang out with him. Okay, anyway, it's a delight to be here, and Felix, who I've known for many years, and gave me a great welcome when I came to the city, and something, when you're sort of new, to be invited to things is always a sign of acceptance, and Felix was always very good to invite me to things, and I really appreciate that. I don't think I've ever said it to you, but it's actually the first time we've ever spoken in English, so this is quite fun as well. Oh yeah, here we are. Okay.
Hey.
So I was making we're the person you're missing, right? So you're Gerard, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Okay.
I was a bit late, but I'm here now.
Okay, yeah. You think you're happy to be here? You should see how happy we are that you're here. So it's even happier. Okay, and we also have Carlos, and I'll get you to introduce yourself in a second. Okay, maybe now that we have Gerard, maybe we'll just do the formal introductions. As my heartbeat goes down after the dramatic introductions. So, just because you're the guy on video, and we want to make you feel included, can you begin by introducing yourself, please, Gerard?
Sure. Actually, I'm not anymore a project manager at the IT Health Spain. I'm the business creation lead, where we support startups and entrepreneurs in the Spanish region, and we help them collaborate with European projects and at the European level with our partners at the IT Health. Yeah.
And where part of the world are you calling us from?
We are based in Barcelona. Yeah, our Spanish office is based in the Parc Científic of Barcelona, and I'm happy to be here connected. But I'm really sorry I was not able to join you physically and see the startup ecosystem myself in person. Yeah.
Okay, not to worry. We won't focus on the negative. Okay, then we go to Carlos. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Of course. I'm Carlos Langever, and I am the Business Development Director in Cyclomed Technologies. Cyclomed Technologies is a spin-off of a research center here in Madrid. The name of the research center is el Centro en Investigaciones Tecnológicas Medioambientales. El Centro en Investigaciones Energéticas, Medioambientales y Tecnológicas. And we are focused on the development or the co-development and the exploitation of a compact particle accelerator for improve the techniques in personalized nuclear medicine. And our technology allows to produce radioisotopes which are used for track the position of different biomolecules inside patient bodies. And this is very important and this is very valuable because the information of the position of these biomolecules allows to the doctors and the medical staff to select or to choose the best treatment for the patient. So basically, Cyclomed Technologies is a deep tech startup focused on radioimmune oncology.
Yeah, it's funny, I've done 2 interviews in the last 2 days, one with ABC and the other with Business Insiders, and they kept on asking me about deep tech. So you suddenly become the thing, like, unless you have a deep tech startup, Felix is going to have to pretend, like ed tech, we have a deep ed tech startup or something like that. So there's a real kind of a recognition that Spain in general, that we have to move away from kind of photo sharing apps and parking apps and stuff like that and have like particle accelerators, I mean, I guess
a superconducting particle accelerator.
I mean, that's
that's intergalactic.
That's kind of amazing. That impresses people at parties, It's like, oh yeah, my friend works for a particle accelerator. But it is true that, that's how wealth is built. Wealth is built by intellectual property and deep tech and, those kind of investments that just can't leave, And while things like investing in car manufacturing and stuff like that has been good for Spain. That was then and this is now. And there's no reason why we can't do more of deep tech in this country. So Felix, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, easy. I'm the director of SecLab EdTech Accelerator, and we were 6 years ago here in South Summit. So I started with a PowerPoint, launching the first EdTech Accelerator because I'm missing, as mentor for startups, I'm missing just a vertical focus on education. We have Wayra, we have Lanzadera, but any of them support specifically the industry of education, that it's quite hard. It's like health. You need 2-3 years to validate, to having innovation in schools or in universities. It's part of SEC Educational Group. It's a company that has more than 120 years, so they have tradition in education. And they decided just to launch this accelerator, just boosting the open innovation. So it's something nice that we were pioneers 6 years ago, and here we are.
And like, it's funny, I was teasing about deep tech, but like, you know, there is a saying that the next Facebook is going to be an ed tech company that, you know, most of us, I think, have had the privilege of accessing education. You know, there was a school and the teachers turned up and all of that. You know, it's funny how that's not true for everyone in this world. And access to education can make a huge difference to people's lives. I mean, it's one thing that, you know, you can demonstratively do to improve yourself, and it can be a lifelong thing in the sense that, you know, we don't just get as a credential, we don't just get a pretty photo on the wall, that you can get access to education. I mean, I grew up in a country, we had one television channel that was on for half the day, you know, and it was like, I see my kids now on YouTube, and you know, I just think that their access to education is wonderful. So let me go to that, Felix, about what are the misconceptions people have about EdTech, right? I mean, do they believe that it's something that isn't, or what do they think people get wrong about EdTech?
Well, 6 years ago, when I say EdTech is on fire 6 years ago, everyone is logging. But it's clear that it's on fire. Spain also is on the map of the top EdTech companies, like Smartick in maths. It's a global app for teaching maths. So it's an industry, a vertical, that demonstrates that it's really necessary. And due to the COVID period, they demonstrate that they were prepared to transform education. It's an industry that needs to really transform. Like health, like other industries, so education needs just boosting to innovate. And the EdTech startups are there just to innovate in all the areas of education, from kids, university, and corporate.
Sure. I mean, what often we say in IE is that these, you know, EdTech startups are like a complement to the core thing. So something like Lingo Kids or something like that is a way, but that the core experience of education isn't just acquiring knowledge, it's also social skills. I mean, I don't know whether any of my students are in the audience, but, you know, the thing I always say to them in the first session is education builds confidence. That's fundamentally, it's not just about knowledge, it's about confidence. It's about, you know, believing that you're as good as other people, and some things you get that from education. You know, you get that from learning so many things and feeling as if you're knowledgeable and feeling if your opinions should matter. So a lot of the EdTech startups can like fill gaps, maybe if your maths teacher isn't very good or something like that, but the core education still has a place in terms of social skills and those kind of things. So let me move on to Gerard, and you know, health is a sort of known as a graveyard for investment. You know, it's a sort of seen as being you know, I mean, energy, I like to, so that I'm not just giving you a bad rep, but energy is often seen in the same situation, that lots of people have invested a lot of money in healthcare, but, you know, a lot of doctors, and they like things just the way they are, and they aren't as excited about these health tech advances. So do you think we're at a real inflection point where people are starting to see more and more health tech?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, this is the right time for investing in health and taking results out of it, because it's the time where doctors are starting to use and to believe more in these new technologies, in deep tech, in how health tech platforms can actually help them be more efficient, see more patients, and bring more value to patients as well. So definitely, I think it's really the right time, and we have to take advantage of this. At EIT Health, we are really putting a lot of effort to increase our efforts of spreading the word, sharing our programs, scouting the best startups that are out there, because it's the best time for you. If you have a health tech startup, it's the best time to go out and to make yourself, you know, noted and meet investors because they are really willing to listen to your health technologies.
Sure. I mean, what kind of problems are they solving? I mean, I know one area, for instance, is femtech. You know, you see this kind of space about everything to do with women's health, which was neglected for years. You know, people sort of thought, you know, they designed products for men and hoped that they work on women. But that's one area I think that they were thinking of. I mean, but what other sort of exciting areas are you seeing a lot of people, you know, what problems they're solving?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that remote monitoring, reducing the number of visits that patients do to hospitals and to doctors.
Yeah.
This is a really hot point at this time, and actually I'm thinking of a startup from Madrid actually, that it's called Leuco. They are also based in the US, and they are developing this remote monitoring of your white blood cell count, which is really important, you know, when you are under cancer treatment, for instance, and you are under the risk of getting an infection. So it's important that you have these tools at home, that you don't have to go to the hospital to take a blood draw, that you can just put the fingerprint in a small device and check if your white blood levels are fine.
Do you count your steps every day? Are you one of these people who counts your steps?
I don't, because it's not a nice thing to see, you know. I'm working at home, so most of the time. So for sure, the pandemic has not helped my exercising.
From Ireland, and at the end of the day, he hadn't reached his 10,000 steps, so he went outside to walk around the block because he didn't like that the graph had a kind of a depression in it. So, wow, I was like, maybe this is a real thing after all. Okay, so if I wanted to find, like, you know, really smart particle accelerator people, where would I find them? Are they coming out of universities? Like where do you guys meet?
Well, this startup.
It's an unfair question. I should probably ask it in terms of the professional way. Talent. Is talent an issue in your industry? How do you find the best talent?
Well, that's a tough question because you need to mix a very talented people of different sectors or different parts of stakeholders in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. You need to mix to have a very good entrepreneur to track the startup in order to do the market fit. But for do that market fit, you need to have a deep technology. That one question. Let me say one thing that I have to mention here. That deep tech is not a sector at all. So it's not an industry. Deep tech is not an industry. Deep tech are technologies, and they should be treated as technologies.
Yeah, they haven't. Yeah, and a technology is a technology. Solving a problem is a business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this is one thing that we don't understand in many occasions, and we make that mistake.
Yeah.
And this mistake makes more difficult to short the ecosystem of deep tech.
You could spend 10 years developing a technology before you have a single customer.
Yep.
You know, so imagine walking into like Kibo or K-Fund or somebody and saying, "We want money and we've no customers and don't expect to have any for 10 years." You know, that's but that's a deep tech conversation. That's how it works.
Yes. But taking your question, you need to look to the knowledge partners. You need to go to universities, to research centers, because they collect all the knowledge of different scientific or in the engineering areas that are very valuable for develop that technologies that will be the base of the product of a deep tech company. So you need a good entrepreneur and also good scientists from the academia.
Sure, no, and I mean that's the sort of the deal. So let me go back to Gerard, and I'm always conscious of forgetting about you, so you know, what kind of I guess my question is, how can we help you? You know, if you know what that is. So if what's the email you would like to get in the morning from somebody? Tell me what would the ideal email. What would that be?
From me, like, how can you help me?
You would get an email, and don't say, like, I don't know, think of some Spanish supermodel or something saying, hi Gerard, do you want to go and, get a Kenya? But, we all go into work every day and we hope this will be the day that everything changes. So do you want, like, money? Do you want, how can, what's the thing that you struggle for every day that you'd really want to happen?
I would say that the best startups working in health with exciting solutions write me an email and ask me how can they start, working with EIT Health, how can they engage with our network, and how can they grow with us, together.
Okay, I mean, that's all we ever want. I'll ask the same question because it's like a cracking question, isn't it? So what's the ideal email you want to get? I mean, is it from, I almost kick myself while I'm saying this, but do you want Jeff Bezos to email you or something like, what's the perfect email you could get?
The perfect email for me, that's a good question, but I think that the innovation minister...
It's like you're going to deep thought about deep tech. Yeah, the innovation minister. Okay, the innovation minister
sending an email for creating the first or a big venture builder for improve the ecosystem here in Spain. That could be for me the best email to...
But, I mean, I read Nadia Calvino is certainly, I mean, she's saying in the newspapers she wants to create a deep tech fund. Do you know anything about that? Or
of the deep tech fund of Nadia Calvino? No.
No. Okay, well...
Not yet.
I don't know. It's often like, I don't know. She says things in the Financial Times, and I come back, I was reading about Financial Times. Sometimes, she says something to the FT and something to Expansión.
But I have information about...
oh, great. Wow, we're all ears. Yeah.
Not from the ministry. But if I remember...
no pressure. No pressure.
And that the Centro de Desarrollo Tecnológico Industrial, which is an entity here in Spain that manage a lot of money for research and development and innovation, they are thinking in a vehicle for invest in technology transfer, which is the first step for
come from the university to
exactly.
Okay.
It's the first step to start a deep tech company.
Okay.
So this is, I think, it's a good.
I say this. I think things are happening in the deep tech space. Just because it's suddenly las palabras de moda. Everyone's talking about whatever, like deep tech. So it's like if you stand on a street corner and shout deep tech 20 times, like someone will appear. It's only fair to ask you the same question, Felix, which is to say, what's the perfect email you would like to get in the morning?
For example, I want to invest in edtech startups, but also European funds or from LATAM. I have this kind of emails later.
LATAM is amazing. I mean, I'm judge of a competition in MIT, and there's like literally the edtech startups from LATAM are absolutely amazing in everything, like the ambition, just the way, the depth of the solution. And I guess I remember talking to some of the entrepreneurs, and that's what they were saying. That was like, the access to it isn't great. You could be living far from a school, or you could be more ambitious, say, than the other people in the class. And that the personalization that EdTech gives you is just a huge winner in LATAM. And that, and also I guess sometimes you don't need that much technology. So, go ahead.
And I have some data from last June. We closed 1 billion euros in investment in EdTech in Europe.
Wow.
And Spain is in the top 5 countries investing in venture capital. So we are in the top 5. We have LegalKids, Ironhack, it's from Madrid.
Yeah.
Genially also last round around $20 million. So
yeah. Ironhack sent me a free T-shirt once, and I was really happy with that. I love them forever. Anyway, I still wear it too. Funny, I told Carlos not to give any numbers. When you meet these kind of like scientist nerd people, they're like, they get into numbers and they lose the audience. So it's funny that Felix is the guy quoting numbers. But if you don't mind me asking, how did you get into this in the first place? Why does this space fascinate you?
Because my first step into entrepreneurship was when I was ending my career in biology. And I discovered that what I find interesting was transfer my results from my research to the market. So the first step was with a little startup about focus on the development of a transparent solar panel that allows to grow plants in a greenhouse, and that also collects energy from the sun, because it was a photovoltaic panel. And with that single step, I discovered a huge world that is technology transfer and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And looking those parts, I think, why don't we mix this, but in a bigger scale?
Yeah.
And despite, instead using the research results from a student, use the big results of researchers.
Wow, it's an interesting story, because like one of the things in a way about Spain is that a lot of researchers are allowed work on whatever they want to work. You know, whereas perhaps in the US, they're sort of forced to work on where the money is. You know, you follow the money in the US. In Spain, you're sort of like, the money is small, but at least you're allowed work. So some researchers say, I wish, you know, all the US guys say, I wish we have what you have in Spain, and then all the Spanish people say, I wish we have what you have in the US. Yeah. So, you know, maybe we need to sort of fertilize the two. Let me ask the sort of the same question to Felix. I mean, you know, education is often discussed as a vocation. I mean, did you go home, like, at the end of the day feeling, you know, you've made a difference in the world, or do it's just a job, you know? It's like, how do you feel?
It's pure vocation. Last year, I organized the EdTech Observatory in Spain. We discovered that there are around 300 EdTech startups in Spain, compared with France, there are 400 EdTech startups. In Germany, around 400 startups. So we are competing with France and Germany. And 50% of the entrepreneurs in education, they worked previously in education, 50%. And 50% are second-time entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So these are one of the reasons that they are resilient. So 5 years ago, the startups that started with us, they are still alive. 80% of the startups that joined our program, they're still alive. So the startups in education, they really resist everything.
And what about, I mean, I was interested in, like, in older people's entrepreneurship. You know, everyone thinks about young people and teaching kids maths and you know, the Khan Academy and stuff like that. But I'm often more impressed by, you know, things, continuous learning, or people, like, you know, returning to education. You know, perhaps one of the biggest scandals in Spain is this whole prejubilado stuff, that, like, some company kicks you out when you're like 50 or something, like, which is very young, considering Spain has literally the second largest life expectancy in the world, and you're sort of like prejubilados. And I meet a lot of those people, and I talk to them about, like, education, and that, you know, that they want to get in. So do you see many startups in looking kind of, I won't call it retraining, but like looking to cater for people, you know, who have already had a career, or is it still mostly, you know, education for you know, children?
There is a good, the market is really divided with corporate education.
Yeah.
They are the companies that have better incomes, but also most of them, they are in K-12 for kids. But there's a good amount of companies in the different industries or verticals for kids, for higher education, for corporate. So we have good startups for every stage of your life.
Okay. Just let me ask a kind of a Barcelona question. I mean, I like, you know, I know, like, there's all these famous eye doctors, and like everyone seems to be going to a specialist in Barcelona. I mean, would you regard it as any sort of cluster, as a fertility doctor who's supposed to be very good? Like, do you regard it as being a kind of a cluster for health, or is it just a small number of people?
For sure. I mean, Catalonia is considered one of, I think, that the most prominent hub in health in Southern Europe, and it's right next to London, Berlin, and Paris for the startup incubation at this point and at this sector.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's sort of one of those things that I've always associated with it. Well, hopefully I won't have any. Well, fertility I probably won't have a problem, but hopefully I won't have eyesight problems anyway. Well, we're out of time, sadly. So all that remains to me, first of all, gracias to Gerard for joining us from Barcelona, and please continue your work in health, and please email him if you have EIT startups. Thank you to Carlos with his particle accelerators, who I won't pretend to understand everything you do, but it sounds absolutely fascinating, and Spain does need more deep tech, so thank you for your contribution. And finally, Felix, it's been great to be on stage with you, and I work in education myself, and I know the value of EdTech, so it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you today. So my name is Joe Haslam. Thank you to all of the audience, and I look forward to seeing you in another panel later today. Thank you.
Thank you.